Hi guys, I'm Heather and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to do my intro for the Popsugar 2020 Reading Challenge. I know I'm a month late, kind of forgot about it, and then I just remembered it last week, so I sat down, put together a list of books. I don't have all 50 decided on. One of my goals this year is to read my physical TBR, like all the books that I own that I have not read. And there's a lot of them. I went through my shelves. I put them all into a Goodreads shelf so I could keep track of them. And it says that I have 368 unread books. And that's not counting any sort of reference books, like language learning books. I didn't count any of my foreign language books. And I didn't count anything like astrology, writing, anything that's more reference than just a general nonfiction. So those are the things that I'm focusing on. I plan to move in maybe a year and a half, and I'm just not sure about my space. So I want to read my books, then declutter at the end of the year, keep what I want to keep, and get rid of the ones that I don't. And even if I have all the same space that I have, my space is full. And I'd like to get new stuff in the future. I just don't have any room for it. So we're gonna start here with this challenge. So the reason I only have 44 of the 50 books decided on is because when I compared the Listopia in the Popsugar group to what I had, I just didn't have anything for that. So maybe I'll come across something as I'm reading for other things that will fit into this. And I do want to give that a chance. So I didn't really decide on something that I would have to buy. And I probably will have to buy some of these things. You know, as a matter of fact, one of the first books I started is one that I had to download specifically for this purpose. And that is the prompt, a book by a trans or non-binary author. As far as I know, I didn't already have anything like that. I could have, but I generally don't keep up with authors, so I don't really know. So I thought it would just be better to go ahead and get one that was recommended. And the book that I picked for that prompt is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. It was on the Listopia for recommendations, so I went with that because it sounds interesting. And what's also interesting is they also seem to write Westerns, which is another prompt. I didn't pick anything for that yet. That's one of the ones that I haven't picked anything for, but I may end up picking another one of their books for that prompt as well. I'm about halfway through Magic for Liars, and I do like the writing, so I think if I'm going to pick a Western, I will probably pick one of those. And if I'm looking down, I'm referencing my lists, my other list, and my phone for all the correct information. But first, let me get out of the way before I get into the books that I did pick for the other categories, the other ones that I did not. So I did not pick anything yet for a book about a book club. You know, I looked through the recommendations versus what I had, and I didn't see anything. So there may be something later on. I do have some mysteries that may involve a book club. So I'll have to see if that happens. I just don't know at this point. I also didn't pick The First Book You Touch on a Shelf with Your Eyes Closed. And that actually would be an easy book to pick, but I want to wait till I've pared down books and gone through like a decluttering before I pick something like that. As it is, I have my books spread across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different shelves. So I still would then have some sort of control over which books I was getting. I want to kind of condense what I have and have a more comprehensive selection in one area as I make that. Because what I'll probably end up doing eventually is moving read books and unread books and keeping them separate. So I may end up doing it like that, but that's why I didn't pick that one yet. And then another one I haven't picked is a book with a made-up language. I don't think there were any recommendations that I had besides Harry Potter, but I've already read Harry Potter. I do have the first volume of Harry Potter in Mandarin, but I don't know if Parseltongue is in the first one. I'm trying to find out. My sister is a bigger Harry Potter fan than I am, so I've asked her. She hasn't responded yet. If it is, I'll pick that one. I could always get Harry Potter in Mandarin, the second book, where I know Parseltongue's in it. I want to get those eventually anyway, so it wouldn't be that big a deal, but for now, I'm going to wait. Then, like I said, I haven't picked a Western. I'm leaning towards one of Sarah Gailey's. I think I'm saying the name right. Honestly, I will butcher a number of people's names. That's just going to happen. Also some words. There's one on here that's a German word that I don't know how to say. And I will butcher it and correct me, and then I'll know how to say it. And then I have a book that's by or about a journalist. Again, nothing that I have on my shelf was recommended. That doesn't mean that I don't have something like that. It just wasn't recommended, and I just don't know about it yet. So it will happen because I'm doing more than just reading these books. I literally am trying to read 367 books this year. It won't happen. So eventually I'm going to have to start paring down what I know that I'm going to keep anyway, whether I read it or not, and ones that I would likely read and decide I didn't want to keep. Okay, so the last one that I haven't picked anything for is a book set in the 1920s. I used to have books set in the 1920s, but to be honest, it's not my favorite time period, so I've gotten rid of all of them. I have read some. I do know of some. Again, I might find one that's on my shelf that just nobody recommended. But for now, that one's blank because I don't have anything currently. And like I said, I did already download a book that I did not own for the prompt, a book by a trans or non-binary author. I also already had an ebook for the prompt, a book with 20 in the title. Either, I guess, they have it written as a book with 20, the numbers, or 20 spelled out in the title. I have one called 22 Faces, and I already had that on ebook. I didn't have anything physically with 20 in it, so I decided to pick that. So everything else that I have picked thus far is something that is on my bookshelf. So let's get into this because I think this is already pretty long. So for the prompt, a book published in 2020, I have picked Chosen by Kirsten White. It was published on January 7th, and this is the sequel to Slayer, which is set in the Buffy universe. I'll be honest, I did not love Slayer, and it was mostly because I hated every single character. But I love Buffy, so I'm willing to give it another shot. I bought the book, so we're going to go for it. And then we've already covered a book by a trans or non-binary author, where I picked Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. And then the next prompt is a book with a great first line, and I picked John Dies at the End by David Wong. That's actually the reason I bought it. I was just browsing around a bookstore. It wasn't recommended or anything. I just kind of came across it. The title was interesting. But I picked it up and I started reading it in the store and I was like, I have to buy this. So that was also a recommended one. And I realized when I saw that recommendation that I did in fact enjoy the first line. So I picked that one. Then the next prompt is a book set in a city that has hosted the Olympics. For that one, I picked Two Bodies for the Price of One by Stephanie Bond. It's the second book in the Body Movers series, and that series takes place in Atlanta. Okay, so here we are with the German word I don't know how to pronounce. The next prompt is a Bildungsroman. I don't know. But so basically, it's some offshoot of a coming-of-age story. I'm not entirely sure of the details, which is why I had such a hard time with this. However, if I didn't know really about the books, I went with people's recommendations. I'm trusting the people in these recommendations that they know what they're talking about. So for that one, I picked The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Then the next one is a book with an upside down image on the cover. And for that one, I picked The Beautiful by Renee Audier. I'm not sure if that's how it is. It was recently published and it seemed interesting. I got it from Book of the Month when I was doing that, which I don't do anymore. But I did get it through that, so I figured I would do that one. And the next prompt is a book with a map. I picked for that one Ninth House. I do remember there being a map in the front of the book, so I'm going with that. And that one could have felt like many prompts, but I didn't want to double down on prompts. I didn't want to have one book for multiple prompts. I wanted one book per prompt, so just went with one. The next prompt is a book recommended by your favorite blog, vlog, podcast, or online book club. And for that one, I picked Crooked Kingdom by Lee Bardugo, the second book in the Six of Crows series. I have not read Six of Crows, but don't worry, it is coming. Crooked Kingdom, like Six of Crows, and Six of Crows could have worked in this prompt as well, was so heavily recommended on BookTube that I kind of had to pick it. Then the next prompt is an anthology. For that one, I picked Prom Nights from Hell. And it's got, let's see, Meg Cabot, Kim Harrison, Michelle Gaff, Stephanie Meyer, and Lauren Miracle. Then a book that passes the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test. I know what it is. I don't know how to say it. So one of the recommended books for this was actually Six of Crows. So I'm hoping that's true because that's what I picked for it. And then I get Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom, Ninth House. I just have to read the other one. I don't have it though, so it's not on my list this time. And then the next prompt is a book with the same title as a movie or TV show, but is unrelated to it. So for that one, I picked Dark Desire by Christine Feehan. It's the second book in the Carpathian series. And I mean, honestly, you just know there is a movie called Dark Desire. It's probably some cheesy horror movie. And I did look it up. It is a cheesy horror movie called Dark Desire. So I'm going with that one. And there is a reason that I picked that over probably any of the other ones that I could pick. And it will be coming up. So the next prompt is a book by an author with flora or fauna in their name. And I've already read this book. I read it yesterday. And that book that I picked was Doll Bones by Holly Black. Holly is a plant. So it worked. And I did already finish that one. So that's the first book that I have finished in the Popsugar Reading Challenge. I do have to catch up. I missed a month. So trying to get some of the smaller books. I believe that book is supposed to be middle grade. The characters are 12. So it was really quick. Then the next prompt is a book published the month of your birthday. One of the books that I have on my shelf was on the list. I'm sure I have other ones, but it would have required going through all the books and seeing when they were published. So I just went with it, and it might be a mistake because it's a massive book, and that is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. That book is so big, and it's in hardcover, and it's going to be such a pain to carry around. I'm not sure, though, that that is the biggest book on my list here. So the next prompt is a book about or by a woman in STEM. So the book that I picked for this was on the recommended list. I'm a little unsure. I guess we'll see when we read it. But it was When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. Like I said, I'm going to butcher names, so correct me for the correct pronunciation. It's got computer science in it, so that's why it was recommended. I guess I'll see when I get to it if I feel like that is valid. There are other books that I could probably get that were better, but I don't know that I have any at the moment. So we'll just see how it goes. And then the next prompt is a book that won an award in 2019. For that one, I picked Sadie by Courtney Summers. And then the next prompt is a book with only words on the cover, no images or graphics. And for that one, I picked Room by Emma Donoghue. The version I have is just Room written in crayon. So I figured that counts. And if my voice sounds weird, I'm having some issues with my throat today, but I really wanted to get this done before I just can't. It's finally sunny. I'm not totally sick, so I want to go ahead and get that done today. And then the next one is a book on a subject you know nothing about. And this one was kind of hard because I was like, if I'm trying to read off my shelf, what books would I have that I didn't know anything about? But I did find one that I had bought ages and ages and ages ago. It's very specific, and I never read it, and I never read any other books like it, so I don't know anything about this. And it's called Dead Names, The Dark History of the Necronomicon by Simon. So that'll be interesting. But I don't know anything about the Necronomicon, other than fictionalized stuff. So nothing factual about the Necronomicon. So yeah, that is the one that I have picked. So it'll be interesting. Then the next prompt is a book with a pun in the title. And for that, I picked Heist Society by Allie Carter. I think I got this at the dollar store. I actually did have a few books with puns in them. Like I had Life After Theft by April Lynn Pike. But I feel like I've had this one sitting on my shelf for a long time, and I've just never read it at all. It's also a series, and I kind of wanted to start books that were like book one of a series to see if I was even interested in ever reading any of the others in those series. And then the next prompt is a book featuring one of the 7 deadly sins. And for that, I picked Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I think we all know what that's about. So I figured that fit well in that. It's one that I've had and I keep meaning to read, but it seems kind of daunting, so I just never get to it. I have seen the movie. I've seen part of the Stanley Kubrick movie. And then I did see the one in the 90s with Dominic Swain. And I did like the movie. So I feel like I like the book. But it just seems like a lot. So the next prompt is a book with a robot, cyborg, or AI character. And for that, I picked The God Game by Danny Toby. I don't know much about this. I actually signed up for something on Instagram and I got a free copy of it. And I just haven't read it yet. So I think that would be a good chance to read that and see if it's any good. It sounded good, though. Then the next prompt is a book with a bird on the cover. And this one, or The Historian, might be the biggest books that I have on this list. This one is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. That book is so huge. So huge. It's like over 1,000 pages, I think. Then the next prompt is a fiction or nonfiction book about a world leader. So I went back to history for that. I don't have anything current about world leaders. I don't read biographies. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, really. So for that, I picked The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. And it's about the Tudors. They were world leaders at one point, so I'm sticking with that one. I don't really like political books, either fiction or nonfiction. I'm just not into that. And then the next prompt is a book with gold, silver, or bronze in the title. So I did a search through all my owned unread books, and I only had 2 that had gold in it. Nothing was silver or bronze. One was The Golden Book of Fairy, which is like a bind up of several fairy books. The other one is Dark Gold by Christine Feehan. It's the 3rd book in the Carpathian series, and that's the one that I went with. So that's kind of why I picked Dark Desire for the other prompt, the 2nd book, because if I was going to read the 3rd one, I needed to read the 2nd one too. The next one is a book by a woman of color, and I actually have a number of these, but Sina was already reading When Dimple Met Rishi. I also have There's Something About Sweetie by the same author, so I decided to go ahead and pick that one. Then the next prompt is a book with at least a 4-star rating on Goodreads. I actually have a lot that have at least a 4-star, but the one that I picked is The Bad Seed by William March. It has a 4.05 right now. I'm currently reading it, so I can't imagine it'll change. It's also a classic, so I can't imagine it'll change either. And the reason I picked this one is I have a copy, but that copy is gross and old. And when people say they love old books, that's great. But there is a point when that book is so old, it's no longer cute. And that's what this book is. And I want to get rid of this copy, but I'm not sure if I want to buy a new copy. So I want to read it, see if I like the book enough to buy a new copy. I love the movie. Like, the movie is one of my favorite movies. There was a TV movie in the 80s that I also really liked. And I've heard they're making another one this year or next year or something, which I'm excited about. But it's an old book. It was written, I think, in the 50s, and sometimes that makes a difference. So the next prompt is a book you meant to read in 2019. Well, this was a lot of books, but I decided to pick My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, mostly because not only did I mean to read this in 2019, I also meant to read it in 2018. So I finally want to get to it. It sounds awesome. It's all 80s and everything like that, which I love. So the next prompt is a book about or involving social media. And recommended for this one was Warcross by Marie Lu. I mean, it seems like it involves social media, so I'm hoping that is true. The next prompt is a book that has a book on the cover. And for that one, I picked The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I have had this book, I don't even know how long, and I have not read it yet. So I finally need to get to it. I have held on to it through every other decluttering that I've done, and I need to finally read it. Then the next prompt is a medical thriller, and this one was also a recommendation, so I really don't know anything about it, so could be right, could be wrong. And that was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Then the next prompt is a book set in a country beginning with C. So for that book, I picked Love Bites by Lindsay Sands. It's the Argino Vampire series. It's book 2, and it takes place in Canada. So the next one is a book you picked because the title caught your attention. And this book that I picked was The Girl Who Could Move Shit with Her Mind by Jackson Ford. I actually bought it because of that title. And the next one is a book with a 3-word title. And for that one, I picked And Another Thing. And this is by Owen Colfer. He wrote the Artemis Fowl books. But this one actually is a continuation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So they listed as Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy number 6. Obviously, it's not the original author, but I'm interested to see how this works and if it's as good or as funny as the other books. Then the next one is a book with a pink cover, and for that I picked Merciless by Danielle Vega, and it's pink. It's absolutely pink. The next one is Read a Banned Book during Banned Books Week. For that one, I picked Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I've never read this. I never had to in school, and I've never read it since because I was afraid I wouldn't like it at this point in my life, but I need to go ahead and do it seeing I have it. And then the next one is your favorite prompt from a past Popsugar Reading challenge. For this one, I picked one from last year, which was a ghost story. And for that, I picked Diary of a Haunting by M. Verano. And it sounds like a good book. And I do like ghost stories. So I hope it's interesting because the last one I read was not interesting. And then there are some advanced prompts. So these ones all kind of center around 20 as a theme. So the first one is a book written by an author in their 20s, and I wasn't sure really whether it was like the author had to currently be in their 20s or they could have been 20 when they wrote the book. A lot of people were going with 20 when they wrote the book. So for that one, I picked The Rules of Attraction by Bret Easton Ellis. I think he was like 23 when he wrote it. And I really enjoyed the movie, so I think I'll like the book. I did read Lesson 0 by him, and I did like it. And like I said, a book with 20 in the title. I did pick an ebook that I already had called 22 Faces, and that's by Judy Byington. And then there's a book with a character with a vision impairment or enhancement, a nod to 20/20 vision. I think for that one I picked Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. Again, it was a recommendation, so I don't really know if it fits, so I'm trusting. Then a book set in Japan, host of the 2020 Olympics. And I picked for that one, where is it? It's by Rachel Cohn. It's called My Almost Flawless Tokyo Dream Life. I picked that up mostly because it has a lucky cat on the cover. Then a book by an author who has written more than 20 books. For that, I picked Nora Roberts. In this particular case, the book that I picked was called Blood Brothers. It's book 1 in the Sign of 7 series. I guess it's a trilogy. Then I have a book with more than 20 letters in its title. For that one, I just randomly picked a book. It's called Rules for Saying Goodbye by Catherine Taylor. It has 21 letters in the title. This is kind of an interesting book. I bought this book used when I found it. It was written by one of the people who, like, years and years ago used to teach an online class at the Gotham Writers Workshop. So I wanted to see what books they wrote. I never actually got around to reading it, so now is the time. Then the next prompt is a book published in the 20th century. And this is not actually hard for me. I have a lot of books published between the 60s and the 90s. So it really was just a matter of picking which one I wanted to read. And I decided on The Watcher in the Woods by Florence Engel Randall. This is, I guess, related to that Disney movie. I'll be honest, I don't know if the movie was first and then this book was written after, or if the book was written first and the movie was based on the book. I don't know, but I love that movie. So I want to read the book. I know there are some differences. There was a whole thing about the ending of Watcher in the Woods and what focus groups liked and didn't like, so it changed a couple times. So I'm interested in seeing how it ends in the book. And then the next prompt is a book from a series with more than 20 books. So I actually have 2 series that have more than 20 books that I know of. The first one is the Argento Vampire series by Lindsay Sands, and then the Carpathian series by Christine Feehan. I decided to go with that one. The Dark Prince, it's book 1, because I already have book 2 and 3 on this list, so I need to read book 1. Then the last prompt is a book with a main character in their 20s. For this, I picked Unsticky by Sarah Manning. I've had it sitting around for a long time. I just happened to click on it, and the description said 20-something character. So I'm like, okay, that's my book, because I know now that she is 20-something. And I did get confirmation while I was doing this video that Parseltongue is indeed in Harry Potter book 1, very, very slightly, and not purposeful really, as far as like Harry using it and all that. But it's there, so it counts. I'm counting it. So I'm going to read Harry Potter book 1 in Mandarin, which I have not read before. I was trying not to reread books that I've already read, but I have not read it in Mandarin, and it'll be good practice because it's well above my level in Mandarin. So it's going to be a lot of work, but it will prompt me to read finally something in Mandarin, and maybe it will be better, and maybe I will get better. But yeah, I'm sorry this is so long. It was a lot to go through, but we'll get there. I will update, I think, at the end of every month what books I have read. I'm going to try to read other books too, not just these books. So it'll probably just be in like a monthly wrap up that I discuss what I've read that's part of this and then part of everything else. I don't really know. We'll see how it goes. But that is everything for now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.